What is up, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Comfort Zone Correction, the wrap-up lessons. We're really excited about this. We're going to go behind the scenes of the book. We're going to talk about Comfort Zone Correction, unfiltered true stories, and successful selling. And we're going to make you a better entrepreneur. We're going to get you one step closer towards your dream. We're going to help you achieve those goals because we go in with some of our experts. Mr. Brown and Kaushal are in the house with us, and they're going to be telling us all about their experiences with entrepreneurship, the realities of business, the things that they don't talk to you in school about. And our main goal with this podcast is to help you be a better entrepreneur, help you in your day-to-day life, make things easier for you, give you an eyesight into a failure that maybe Mr. Brown or Kaushal has already experienced and come out the other side as a rock star. So hopefully this is going to be the first episode of many. So Kaushal and Mr. Brown, when did you guys first know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
If I recollect correctly, I must be probably 14 or 15. And my father was a government employee, and the paycheck that was received every month was enough to, keep the family going, 4 members of the family. Basically, nothing extra was left to do something, over and above keeping the family going.
Mm-hmm.
So to make an extra little money, me and my brother, my younger brother, decided to buy a solid soap, which was used to clean the dishes in the kitchen. And we'll buy this in wholesale. We'll sell door to door in the retail. This was basically the very first encounter and the taste of being an entrepreneur.
So was that also like your first job? Your first job was your own self being your own boss?
Yeah, I mean, 14, 15-year-old, nobody's going to offer you a job. But, yes, that was my first encounter to make a little extra money. This was the first taste for me.
Nice. How about you, Kaushal?
So while I was growing up, for me, I remember the biggest memory is of going to my grandfather and my father's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I always saw my grandfather, he was very busy entrepreneurial lifestyle. He was also a venture capitalist in other businesses. So I was really inspired from a very early age that I didn't see myself doing a job. And then when I came to America, I was sure that I want to be in the jewelry business. It was just like how it happened. But for me, the inspiration, I would say, were my grandfather, my father, when I saw them when I was growing up. And that just really sparked that interest in me.
So were you guys both interested in the jewelry industry from like a young age, or how did those kind of job opportunities present themselves to you guys?
For me, it was a stroke of luck. Somebody from overseas trusted me, sent the first shipment of merchandise after, few years of coming to America. So I must have learned the trade maybe 4 or 5 months back home, and then I started gradually. Of course, you always go through ups and downs, and eventually, I did get the hang of how to do the business. But I'm not coming basically from the family of the jewelers. To me, it was just a stroke of luck. I can say that.
How about you, Kaushal? I know you said in college, you even said on exam, like you wanted to be a jeweler.
Yeah. So for me, it came through my family. My father was the one who started the diamond manufacturing business. My grandfather was in the automobile business. My father didn't find any interest in that for some reason, or it just didn't spark his fancy. I happened to fall in love with it at a very young age. My father used to take us to the diamond cutting offices and the laser sawing and where all the rough diamonds would be processed. And he specialized in diamonds that were 2 carats to 10 carats, after they were cut. And at that time, there were not many computers who were able to guide you how to get the optimum yield or the optimum shape out of this or the optimum cut out of this. And a lot dependent on the experience and the creativity. And that's where my father, I believe, had a very unique skill set, which can only be developed over time. And when I was watching that, I knew somehow where in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, maybe I fell in love with the trade. But yeah, for me, it came through my father.
Yeah, we all ended up in New York, and I know in the city, it's like such a busy city. It moves so fast, and there's so many things happening all the time. For me, for example, it's like somebody has a show they're in, so you get free tickets to a show, or there's a free concert, or, you know, there's always something going on in Central Park and things like that. So how did you guys find yourself breaking that cycle of, you know, you go to work to pay the bills, to get food, then you wake up in the morning, go to work, you pay the bills, you pay rent, you get food. You know, how did you find yourself breaking out of that cycle of life and really moving forward into your entrepreneurship?
See, I came to America with my wife. So for me, the priority was the food and the shelter. So in the beginning, everything that I earned was going towards managing the priorities. I was in this never-ending, grinding, vicious cycle. After 3, 4 years of saving the money, I decided, again, it's about time, I just start cutting down my hours at both the places, because that is not something that I wanted to do in future. I did not see that working for either JCPenney or Burger King is going to lead me to be an entrepreneur. So eventually, I had to cut down my hours, and gradually I started, working towards my dream of being an entrepreneur. I was successfully doing over a period of time what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. And I find that even saying no is, and making that sacrifice, for me, especially living in New York, like I said, there was so much stuff going on all the time. So even when we started doing that book, I had to get good at saying no also to things. Like I know you had said that you had a couple job opportunities where they wanted you to become manager and things like that. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast series. But it's interesting to look back and you're like, wow, just because I started saying no to those things, it helped us move so much faster to finally complete the book and like start getting these stories together. And Kaushal, how did you find yourself like breaking out of that routine of the New York life and really focusing in on your career path?
I was privileged that I had humble beginnings, and I had an education behind me from Purdue University after I moved to New York. And I knew that I always had a backup plan that, okay, if anything doesn't work out, I can always go back to India.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you a sense of security. But my turning point in life was when I met Mr. Brown and I started working for his company. I did not realize that I would get the opportunity to meet my mentor, who would show me the ropes and coach me to be a better salesperson or better person in general. My journey started, and there was always a time when, I believe in everybody's life is that you grow, you are in the growth zone, you break the uncomfortable zone, and then you go into the prosperity zone, and then you become comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then again, you need to break that and you need to go into growth zone.
Yeah.
So what I think it was just the law of nature. And the way it happened was that Mr. Brown was transitioning, and he was exiting the business. And my family in India needed me to come back for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And everything just so happened, and everything fell into place in such a way that as Mr. Brown was exiting his business, I was able to take the blessings of the firm and go to India, spend some time with my family. And in 2012, I decided to go out on my own. The best part is, that there was nothing so dramatic about it. It just, I believe it happened very organically.
Funny when you look at life and you get led down different paths. It's almost like a compass is like leading you invisibly towards the direction you're supposed to go. Because even you said when you had gone to India, I know, like clients were calling you back to America. So you eventually had to even though you were thinking, like, oh, I'll set up shop in India, you ended up having to go to America all the time.
Yeah, you can't fight destiny. Yeah. And I just went with the flow, and they say that go where the love is. And
I like that.
I just kept my mind focused on that. Mm-hmm. Because I was fighting many odds. Once again, I would like to point back to my mentor and Mr. Brown, I was in touch with him almost every day from India. I was talking to him. And we would not talk business because there was nothing to talk about business because he was done, I was done. But we were just like I felt that that was a very positive influence in my life. I just go back to that saying, go where the love is. Think if we are focusing on where the positives are, and if we just dedicate all our time towards it, then the negatives don't have time to dwell, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how we even came up with the dream for this book. Because I know you guys were just like in a hotel room somewhere doing business, right? When you guys were like, Mr. Brown, you have an answer for everything. We need to like write these stories down. Like, how do you come up with the answer so fast, And Mr. Brown, how do you have an answer? You just always, you have the experience of something to like fall back on kind of thing, or?
I mean, not really. See, as far as I'm concerned, number one, I came to America with nothing. That is one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, so I have to start my life from ground zero.
Yeah, you didn't have any cushion. Like me and Kaushal always had like, oh, we could always go back. You're like, nope, I'm not going back. I'm here. I'm planting my feet. We're making it happen.
Coming to America was my first dream. Flying away to a distant land was my first dream. So the first step of my dream came true. Now the next step was how to go forward. So gradually, you start working for somebody, start saving the money. Luckily, right within a week of me coming to America, I got a job both at JCPenney and Burger King on the same day. You will not believe it, but how happy I was when I received my first paycheck on the second week on Friday from JCPenney. Mm-hmm. It was not a lot of money, but it was something about $120 or something after taking away all the social security and everything. And I told my manager, what is this? Why this deduction? He explained to me how America works.
Like all the taxes coming out of your paycheck. You're like, where's my money?
Yeah, I said, where is my money? He said, you know what? This is for the social security. This is for this tax. This is for this tax. And I said, oh my God, I'm not left with anything. And the same evening, I got the paycheck from, Burger King. Those two paychecks made me so happy, man. Something, this is my hard work, which is being rewarded right now. Mm-hmm. So gradually over time, you learn from your mistakes and you want to make sure you don't repeat the same mistakes. And those experiences that I shared with Kaushal, it basically came to me through my working overseas for about 6-7 years, right from 14, 15, 16 years of young age when you start working. So you begin to get through all those ups and downs of the business cycle, because I was not with the silver spoon, and you have to fight out to make every penny back home. Mm-hmm. So those experiences really helped me to do what I wanted to do in America, and I will always want to make sure that I don't repeat those mistakes, and how to be on a very safer side. If I make a mistake and if I lose the money, there was no way I can lean to for guidance or advice, because there's nobody who can talk to me, mm-hmm. because I was so new here.
And when we started putting these stories together, we really wanted to highlight that, because when you guys were working together, you were really like building Mr. Brown's business from the ground up and really out there every day, shaking somebody's hand. You would be at the trade show and you were the ones, you were seeing everybody, talking to everybody. And I feel like people just don't do business like that. These days, everybody just kind of expects things to be handed to them in a way. So Kaushal, can you talk a little bit more about, why we wanted to put this book out there and get these stories out, and the difference between Mr. Brown and other people in your guys' industry?
Yes, I saw somewhere on LinkedIn, there was a post. Our great-grandfathers, when they were working or when they had a job, or our grandfathers for that matter, their main concern was to survive, because they wanted to put food on their family table. A lot of them were immigrants. A lot of people came from different countries, or the world was just going through a revolution. That's how we call it, the Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. Even if your boss was abusive, you worked because you had to survive, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So our grandfathers, our forefathers did that. Then came our parents, and they were like, you know what? I don't need to survive. I want to have a nice standard of living, you know. So my father did not have a car. I'm going to buy a car. My father did not have a house. I'm going to buy a house. He didn't have memberships at clubs. I'm going to buy that, you know.
Yeah.
And then came our age, which is the age of information, and which is the new age, which is the new young age is going into the whole different age of AI, you know.
Mhm.
So our whole needs were not survival. Our needs were not even quality of, standard of living. For us, what was important was balance and quality of life. So going back to what Mr. Brown was saying, is that everyday hustle, everyday things, are important, because what happens is that we are living in such an age where everything is magnified, because we are living in the information and the digital age, where information is traveling at a rapid speed. If today somebody has a success in Fiji Islands, the entire world is going to know it if it is going to spread virally.
Mhm.
And because of that, everybody thinks that everything is very easy, because everything just seems such way when you open your phones and your gadgets.
Mm-hmm.
And the true core value, the true soul of any result is hard work and sincerity. The most important thing is showing up. You have to show up every day, and you have to show up at your every task, and you have to meet your every deadline. If you are not doing that, no matter what everybody else is showcasing, their imagination or their perception of success, it is not real if there is no real hard work put into it.
Mm-hmm.
And what Mr. Brown did was build a business from scratch in an organic manner. He didn't have a generation of wealth. He didn't have investors. He didn't have even a niche, on his product.
Mm-hmm.
All he had was the dedication. He showed up, and he had the dedication and the sincerity of taking care of his customers. And obviously, he had good partners, and everything fell in place. He was always thinking about how his customers should be taken care of. How should they be treated in the same manner how he would like to be treated? These are simple things which a lot of the younger generation don't think about nowadays. And that was one of the reasons why it is very compelling for me to put this message out there via this book.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mr. Brown, the fabric is not made anymore. The young generation is living in the digital age. It's like kind of analog versus digital, right?
Yeah.
Like analog technology is a whole different era, and we are in the digital era.
Yeah.
Analog works differently. You have to manually wind your watch. And digital, you just change the battery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, or charge the battery rather nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very simple thought process like that. And in analog, it is just organic. It is more mechanical. It is more real. It is more authentic. Whereas in digital, there is a lot of touch points and impressions.
Yeah, like Mr. Brown used to go and, have dinner with his clients. He would know their family. Like every time he would travel, he would go a couple extra days to really have a personal relationship with the client.
And that is an analog impression.
Yeah.
And that is an analog touch point. Whereas now we have digital impressions and digital touch points. We have emails and likes and loves,
Yep. And now you have like digital ads. So, you're scrolling and it's like, buy this jewelry because it looks good on this influencer, instead of, why should I buy it?
And then if you look at all these movies, right, that Wall-E is a very good example, actually. That movie, Wall-E, they try to preserve a plant. because the entire world is created.
Mhm.
Somebody is selling air for survival,
Mm-hmm.
and Wally, the robot, is preserving plant so that it can create oxygen. So
Mhm.
people don't need to buy oxygen.
Yeah.
I think it is well important. That is the reason why this book needed to be out there, because it is oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
It is very much like oxygen. And whenever people are going to realize it, they're going to need it, and they're going to need to learn these ways of hard work, of hustle, of authenticity, of being genuine, of thinking and putting yourself in the customer's shoes and going an extra mile
Mm-hmm.
to take care of your customer so that you can make them look like a hero.
Yeah. And that's the way we tried to write the book too, in terms of, okay, here's the story, here's some motivational quotes that Mr. Brown may have said to us, here's some wrap-up lessons so that you can go back through the story and think about, did I really learn this lesson or that lesson? Because even, for example, this chapter, why should I buy from you? That's something that you ask every day in business. Like, what's the difference from them buying your thing versus somebody buying the other thing? There's so many things that go into it besides just the price point. Because we even say if you argue on price point, there is no quotient. Like there's no ceiling to the, you can argue on price point all day. So let's talk a little bit too, like how we started with the name of the book. I know we talked just about like how the book was made, but like how we came up with the titles. The process of making the book was basically Kaushal had the idea in a hotel room in Seattle, and he said, we should start collecting all these stories. So Mr. Brown, get out your pen and paper. So he started writing all these stories. Then he would email them or take a picture of them, send them to me. I would like type them up. And then gradually, chapter by chapter, we were able to build this book. And I remember even going over the title where we were like, we should say like The Church of Mr. Brown or Rub the Shoulder and these sort of things. And then they quickly got scratched off because I think there is a Church of Mr. Brown or a Church of Brown or something. And then Rub the Shoulder, we were like, oh, this could be like a double entendre. So Mr. Brown, do you want to talk about how, your nickname, as the audience will find out if they haven't read the book already, was the Brown Man. So how did we end up going with Mr. Brown?
Let me start by saying that we started this book with the name saying brown man, brown man, brown man everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recollect, I think the first editor was, she was trying to correct all the things, and she even mentioned Amy. She even mentioned about that brown man doesn't sound good, and it might backfire because of what was going on at that time in our country. At that time, people think as to what is to be done. And one fine day, I was having lunch with Mr. Richard Swest, who unfortunately is no longer with us. I was having lunch with him, and he was talking to me about the different projects that he was doing. And he said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "This is what I'm doing, but I have a few questions, and I want your wisdom." At that time, I narrated this problem to him that in this particular book, we are using the word brown man, where the things are in this country that somebody will think that this is like a racist book.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought for a second, and he said, "You know what? It's very simple. Mr. Brown, that's it. You want Mr. Brown." So that very second, Mr. Brown was born, Emily.
Mm-hmm. How did you have your nickname, the Brown Man, at trade shows and things? How did that first come about? Do you remember?
How was very much instrumental in putting together the face of Mr. Brown on that ad in one of the group's publication.
So Mr. Brown had a very distinctive personality. He always wears a baseball hat, a UPS hat, and he would always tell his customers, "What can this Brown do for you?" Because UPS slogan was, "What can Brown do for you?" And he would say, "What can this Brown do for you?" So a lot of people would find it hilarious. A lot of people would think, "What's going on?" He's just like kind of funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was taking some photography lessons, and I was particularly like specializing to learn on taking portraits. So I said, "You know what, Mr. Brown, we need to capture you, and we need to put an ad out there. What can this Brown do for you?"
That's fun.
And that's what we did. I just took a nice portrait picture of him in a nice Renaissance lighting. And we put an ad out there with some specials. And we said, what can this brand do for you? Call this number. And it just remained with it. And the entire team played along, which helped obviously to magnify it. But that's how it started.
You're right.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about it, as the podcast goes on. But do you guys also want to talk a little bit, just, what your hopes are for this podcast?
When I think about the entrepreneurship, they are teaching into, those even postgraduate schools, MBA programs. They're talking about how to sell, how to buy, how to budget, how to market, make profit. Involves going through the case studies, going through the financial statements, accounting, financial, and everything. But one simple thing that I believe that they are not teaching anybody is the human element, what I call the human connectivity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That they're not teaching. They're only showing how to make money, how to make profit, how to make money, how to make profit, and that's all they're teaching everywhere. The most important thing that I feel many times that, has to be taught is the element of trust. Nobody talks about the trust in business. And to me, trust is a rare and it's a priceless commodity in any field. That is one thing. Second thing, they also had to teach them that every entrepreneur who is going to start his business or a company or anything has to know fully well that anything that goes up always is going to come down.
Mm-hmm.
So to be an entrepreneur, you must be prepared and have a proper plan when the downturn is going to start. Because every day is not going to be the same. Every day is not going to be, sunny. There are going to be the clouds, and which we are seeing in the last all about 10, 20 years. There are always challenges that are coming through, and the companies that are successful are the ones who are navigating through these challenging times. Just think about, this pandemic. How many companies were shut down? Why? I think personally that there was no proper planning as to what is going to happen, what should they do in a given situation when things like this happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe the couple of things, they really have to bring it into, into the schools to make them understand that every day is not going to be the same. And you know what? You have to learn a failure. And what would you do if you're going to fail? Are you going to collapse? Are you going to get drunk? Are you going to kill yourself? So those are the basic things that they will have to teach besides the selling, the buying, the budgeting, the marketing, and making a profit.
Yeah. And thinking outside the box, that's the main reason we made this book too, is to kind of teach people different lessons that you've already learned in life, like things that you can only learn if you're in the field and you're walking in the field every day and going through the motions every day. Because like you said, you can teach anything on paper, but when reality happens and the world changes, or you get that phone call from that one client, what are you going to do to help them? Or how can you think outside of the box?
I don't know if you remember this, but you, me, and Mr. Brown, the first time we met was in Manhattan at Carty Road on the near the Park Avenue location.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I think that was the game changer. That was a lunch that I will never forget, from my memory.
Yeah.
It was good. It was really good. And I was so happy that you also, enjoyed my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you for sharing him with me.
Together. Yeah, no, I was like just excited. One thing I realized was what he taught us too, right? I mean, like he would share his knowledge and his friends with us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just cool to see, that we are all people of the same DNA, but we are only 6 degrees apart.
Yeah.
But Cow and Am, let me put it this way, okay? If I would not have been pushed, I'm using the word push because you literally put the gun to my head. You know,
The pen. We put the pen in your hand.
Give me the stories. I want to know the stories. He said, this experience we are not going to get anywhere else. This is the first-hand experience, and your patience putting up for 6 years has really helped us to do and present this, my experiences and the challenges faced. And I'm glad the way you did it, the way you presented with this question, and then of course you're giving the answer as to what Mr. Brown has done in a given situation. And those kind of challenges happen almost every single day in everybody's life who wants to sell something.
Mm-hmm.
And people always ask question, why should I buy from you? For example, think about you. You're driving the car, right? And your insurance premium is due. You're being bombarded 3 months ahead of time. Okay, you know what? The insurance companies are going to bombard. Give me your business. Give me your business. Give me your business. And you know what? You ask this question all the time. Okay, you know what? Why should I give you my business?
Mm-hmm.
So these particular challenges and the experience we have put it in front of the world to read, to learn, and to understand. We are really blessed that at least we are getting a great reception, and I'm happy that at least people can learn something from here. Yeah?
Yes, we're just like how Kaushal shared his mentor with me. I'm sharing my mentor with everybody.
Yes. 10 years it took us to complete this project, but hopefully it will save a lot of people many, many years, if they just take even one lesson from this book.
Special thanks to everyone who tuned in today, and make sure you join us next week because we're going to be talking about the importance of rules and why rules are made for some reason for business. Why? Well, you'll find out next week. And if you want more weekly inspiration, follow us on social media. You'll find all of our links below, as well as the link to our book. We're available on Amazon in Audible, Kindle, and paperback.